I'm on, like, millennial TikTok. Welcome to Wow If True, the podcast of your wildest memes.
We're your one-stop internet culture shop, here to dissect what's going viral, why we care, and how this might affect our real human lives. I'm Blorbo from your shows, Isabel.
I don't know what that means, and I know you're gonna tell me what it means, and I'm excited about that. I'm Amanda. Anyone could be famous on the internet, so why not us?
We're talking about shows today, and also Blorbo from them. More on that later. Sorry, I just really wanted to say that.
Again, I don't know what this means, but I'm genuinely, I've been waiting to record this episode so I can find out what the fuck Isabel's talking about.
But anyway, you had stuff you wanted to talk about first, and I feel like it makes a really good segue for Blorbo from the shows to talk about the shows.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about some shows which Blorbo is not in. To my knowledge, I don't know what that means.
No, I don't think Blorbo is from these shows.
I am the listener stand-in. I'm the everyman where, I'm the character that listeners identify with when they're like, what's Isabel talking about? I'm with you.
No, there's at least 3 or 4 guys listening to this right now who are still on Tumblr like me and are going, yes, fuck yeah, she's talking about Blorbo from shows. Love that guy.
So, Isabel, last night, Alex Warren followed and unfollowed me within the span of a few seconds. It was really weird. Do you know who Alex Warren is?
See, now it's my turn to be the listener stand-in, because I don't. Who is Alex Warren?
Well, I didn't know who Alex Warren was either until last week when I watched all of the new Netflix show Hype House in one sitting.
Hey, are you good there, buddy?
Not really. I've been poisoned with knowledge that I didn't need. But the thing is, I feel like I don't spend a lot of time on, super popular people TikTok. My TikTok is all, cleaning videos and, cooking videos, and I'm on, millennial TikTok.
Honestly, cooking TikTok is, the better side of TikTok, so I can't even really roast you for this. I love cooking TikTok. I support it highly.
But so apparently on Gen Z TikTok, people are really into Hype House, which is a content house of a bunch of really famous TikTokers who are also Gen Zers, like Thomas Petro and Alex Warren and Cover Renan and Chase Lil Huddy Hudson.
I love how I don't know who any of these people are. I feel so old right now, but also I'm I don't care who these people are, and I love that for me. Do you care who these people are now? Are you invested in their lives after watching Hype House?
A little bit, and I think there's a lot of recursiveness here, and we love recursiveness. But first, let's talk about what is a content house. Hype House is a content house. So, shameless plug for our Patreon.
The first of many Patreon plugs today.
We are industrious businesswomen, girl bosses.
Oh my god.
Sorry, I said I was gonna stop saying girl boss, but anyway, so we talked on our Patreon about this TikTok that went viral last year of 16 quote-unquote entrepreneurs who moved into a beautiful New York City brownstone together, but it looked like the literal worst place to live ever. They turned this beautiful historic building into the worst place possible to live.
It was truly the rat's nest of people. That's the only way to say what it was, but also it did remind me of your college situation.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, I'm outing myself. I was in a fraternity in college, but it was a punk rock fraternity. Japanese Breakfast played at our fraternity, and now she's been nominated for 2 Grammys, so frat culture sucks. It wasn't a bad frat, I promise. More on this in our Patreon video about the 16-person entrepreneur house. But anyway, a content house is basically that, except everybody is obscenely rich and TikTok famous, and instead of living in, a shitty punk house like I did, you're living in a $5 million LA mansion.
That sounds good. I feel like if I was in my early 20s, God, I can't believe I can say if I was in my early 20s. I feel so fucking old. I'm 25.
Yeah, we're both 25.
That's not early 20s anymore. That's mid 20s. I'm also turning 26 in a month.
I know, this is why we're too old to understand Hype House. So basically, in a content house, they all live together. They essentially bolster each other's fame by association. So it becomes a situation where it's oh, I'm following Charlie D'Amelio, who was a member of Hype House who didn't live there. Mm-hmm. But she, at the time, was dating Chase Lil Huddy Hudson. So I'm also gonna follow Chase Lil Huddy Hudson. They bolster each other's fame in that way, and they get another income stream from their collective Hype House content. But Hype House used to be like the it house because the aforementioned Charli D'Amelio hung out there, among other people, but Charli D'Amelio is the most followed and highest earning person on TikTok. But people like her and Chase Lil Huddy Hudson.
Are you gonna say that every time? Because you should, it's funny.
Yes. But the more famous people moved out because their fame surpassed the collective Hype House, and also they were like, maybe living with 9 roommates is not an ideal situation. People don't do their dishes because they're too busy making TikToks. But so, the Netflix show Hype House starts when Chase Lil Huddy Hudson has just moved out. There's a lot of drama about how all the most famous people are suddenly gone. Nobody wants to make TikToks anymore. Everybody is totally burnt out. All they have to do to pay for their house is make 8 sponsored TikToks a month for Bang energy drinks, but nobody will do that. And then there's this guy, Thomas Petro, who's also a famous TikToker or whatever. I personally identified with him because that was me when I lived in my punk house. I was like, why won't any of you do your dishes? But Thomas Petro is like, why won't any of you make the sponsored TikToks for Bang on the Hype House TikTok page? But so they're all very miserable. Like, everybody in this show is having a terrible time, even though they're all 20-year-old millionaires. And the thing is that they're all worried that they all got famous for like no reason, because they kind of did. Like, they're slightly funny, they're charismatic, they're conventionally attractive, the algorithm liked them, they suddenly became famous, but at the end of the day, they just kind of got really lucky, and now they're trying to maintain their fame, and they're stressed about that. But the thing is, it's all recursive, because they're worried about maintaining their fame, but while this is all happening, they're being filmed for a Netflix reality show, which is only going to make them more famous.
These people need, like, real problems. No, I haven't watched it, so maybe they do have real problems, because I did see some of the trailers for it, and, like, people were talking about what their lives were like before and stuff. But, like, at a certain point, I think, like, make your fucking TikToks and pay your rent! Damn!
See, honestly, justice for Thomas. Thomas is the best character in Hype House.
Damn, do you know what I have to do to pay my rent? I have to do, like, fucking legal work.
Yeah.
I have to fucking, like, look at contracts. Like, I would love to just make a couple of TikToks. I'm saying that, and I've been saying that I'll make TikToks for our podcast for months, and I have not done it. So maybe I should be identifying with these Hype House shitheads.
You know what I do to pay my rent, Isabel?
What do you do to pay your rent?
I write essays about Hype House and post them on TechCrunch.com.
See, that fucking sucks. Man, like, you're part of the problem.
I just feel so fascinated by, like, what do you do when suddenly you're very famous on the internet, but then you realize that you're just kind of famous because you got really lucky.
Well, so this is interesting because it feels like the 2.0 capitalism problem. Not problem, but it's the same issue as like when people went viral for memes, I think, in like the 2000s. That's basically what's going on here, except now there's actual money involved.
And I mean, there is actual money involved with going viral for memes because now there's like the Bad Luck Brian NFT.
Right, like, but like there wasn't in the early days of the internet.
Yeah.
Like Bad Luck Brian did not make money until the NFT existed. Okay, I actually don't know. Maybe he leveraged that in some way, but...
Imagine if Bad Luck Brian was like a motivational speaker and like went to high schools and was like, I know what it's like to be bullied on the internet.
Honestly, I would love to see that. Had I been in high school, I would have loved to see Bad Luck Brian like tell me his story, because I would have thought that was actually very interesting.
I would love that now.
Can we get Bad Luck Brian on the podcast?
I mean, we got Kitty Cat Dance Guy on the podcast, so anything's possible.
I actually have a question related to this. How many content houses are there? Is this a big thing, or is this like, are they just the largest content house out there, so that's why they got the show, or is it a weird thing that they're doing?
I feel like Hype House is probably one of the most popular ones, although now they're kind of dying, which is also a plot line in the Netflix show, but these have also existed. Like, this isn't a new TikTok thing. Viners did this, YouTubers did this. I think it's a very common impulse when people are like, everybody thinks it's a great idea to live with your 10 closest friends. And then you do it, and then you're like, my 10 closest friends don't know how to do the dishes. Maybe I'm projecting.
Okay, but also, like, don't they have, like, they have so much money, don't they have, like, cleaners and stuff like that? Like, I feel like if you're gonna get a bunch of, like, 20-somethings together, and they're all just making TikToks, and I'm just, like, assuming that means that they're kind of useless, shouldn't they be, like, hiring, like, some sort of staff situation, just because it's, like, a lot of people in one place?
I mean, You would think so, but I wonder if maybe they worry, like, what if the cleaner of the TikTok house becomes, like, TikTok famous?
See, that's an interesting problem to have because you're right. Like, I think that the guy that cleans the TikTok house would go viral.
Oh, for sure. I think it would be very funny if the guy was just like, you're all assholes.
Yeah, there was a guy on TikTok who nannied for like Japanese billionaires for a while. He was viral because he was just like dishing about like all the weird shit that rich people do. And so like TikTok cleaning guy would 100% go viral.
I will say, I have a friend who was once an au pair, which is a fancy nanny, and she saw the family she au paired for recently, but then they found out after the fact that they had been exposed to COVID and that they potentially exposed her to COVID. So then they sent her a fruit edible arrangement saying, sorry, we potentially exposed you to COVID.
I don't know how to feel about that one, but I think that's a nice gesture.
I think it's a nice gesture, but it's just, sorry, we exposed you to COVID edible arrangement. That's a thing that happened in the real world. Speaking of things that happened in the real world, Hype House.
Okay, so like, is their content any good?
I've never felt so out of touch with the zeitgeist because I don't understand why people think that their content is interesting. It's like Charli D'Amelio makes $17.5 million a year. Her whole brand is that she's just a random girl who happened to charm the TikTok algorithm. Her bio on TikTok at one point was, don't worry, I don't understand the hype either, or something like that. She just does TikTok dances and posts whatever any random teenager would post. But then the thing is, you become super famous and your brand is that you're hashtag relatable, but suddenly you're not posting anymore from your childhood bedroom. You're posting from the giant mansion in LA that your family now lives in so that you can be in LA to do your work. And also, now Charli D'Amelio has her own Hulu reality show.
Okay.
And I think the thing is that there's so much pressure on these kids because they do know that they're mediocre. But it's okay because, like, everybody's mediocre. We can't all be Olivia Rodrigo. We're all pretty mediocre.
I don't know about you. I'm special. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like almost what's going on here is just the fact that people like knowing about what other people are doing. Like, this has been my theory about celebrities forever, where in your life, a celebrity stands in for a mutual friend. Does that make sense? Where, like, you and another person can talk about what this person is doing and you both know who this guy is.
Like Pete Davidson.
I mean, we can also talk about, like, our mutual friends, but we could also talk about Pete Davidson. I think people just like to feel part of something. I don't know why Charli D'Amelio is famous, but I also feel that way about, like, Emily Mariko.
Oh, is she the one that did the salmon rice hack?
Yes, the salmon rice hack, which I've been meaning to try for like a month and a half and still simply have not.
At least she's an innovator, but also I feel like it's pretty common knowledge that you're supposed to like put water on rice when you heat it up, and I think that's kind of why she's famous.
See, I didn't know that.
Oh, I mean, I'm just a kitchen whiz then, I guess.
When I'm microwaving rice, I'm usually doing it from frozen, which already has like kind of like a condensation situation going on.
You freeze rice?
You can freeze rice. It'll last forever.
Damn, interesting.
Life hacks from Wow If True. You can freeze rice. What you should do is you should, like, after it's cooled, put it in sheets in a Ziploc bag and then stick it in your freezer. It'll last forever and you basically have rice on demand.
I feel like I already have rice on demand because I have an Instapot.
Yeah, but like if you don't want to wait like 20 minutes.
True. And then I also have to clean the Instapot.
This is good if you just want rice within 30 seconds, which is usually where I am in my life.
Yeah, and also I think anyone listening to this podcast, you're too good for like minute microwave rice or like boil in bag rice. That shit is terrible. It's not good rice. You deserve better.
Okay, see, now I'm thinking about why do people listen to our content?
Because we teach them about Hype House, we teach them about Blorbo from shows, which I still don't know what it is, and we teach them how to eat better rice.
You know, actually, yeah, we are providing utility to people's lives through this rice hack and informing them of Blorbo from shows and what's going on in Hype House. Like, we are providing a public service.
Does Charli D'Amelio tell you about Blorbo from shows? I don't think so, but she has $17.5 million, and I have under $1 million by a lot.
The thing about this is that, like, I have no sympathy for these people because they have so much money. Do you know what I mean? Where, like, $17.5 million is like, you don't need to do this.
I mean, I feel like the thing is that, like, as you get more money, you want more money. Mm-hmm. And I think this is the problem with capitalism, is that when we're, like, 16, we're all like, I'm gonna donate all my money. And then when you start making money, you're like, but what if I have a freak accident and then have to pay tons of medical bills? You know what? This isn't a problem with capitalism. This is a problem specifically with the American healthcare system, which is a product of capitalism.
So it really is all back to capitalism.
Yes, we're so right.
It's just funny, like, the way that you made, like, a full circle back to capitalism professionalism in under 15 seconds.
You know, this is life. So another thing that came out on Netflix this week was season 2 of Cheer.
Mm-hmm. This I did start watching, but tell me about it.
I honestly love Cheer. So basically season 1 of Cheer, which came out in 2020, is like you have Navarro College, which is one of the top cheerleading programs. It's about how hard all these athletes work, how people think cheerleading is just like, go team, but they're doing like crazy flips and putting their body in severe danger for this sport. And all the people from Cheer season 1 became super famous. So now Cheer season 2, it's the same thing where they're still like, we're getting ready to go to our big competition in Daytona, except now they're all famous. So then they have footage of them like in their dorms doing cameos, and it's just like, I love the meta recursiveness of they're famous because they were on a Netflix show and now they're being recorded again for a Netflix show where it shows how their lives have changed because of the Netflix show. And it's almost like an advertisement for Netflix, except presumably if you've watched Cheer season 2, you've watched Cheer season 1, so they don't need to sell you.
This is extremely meta, but like I think it's such an interesting, not problem, but situation to be in, because like it's interesting in the way that Cheer season 2's recursiveness can only exist with Cheer season 1 going viral. So it's almost like a snapshot of like, this is what life is like before you get the reality show, this is what life is like after, in like the middle of it. Yeah, which is kind of a cool situation. So what I was thinking about like when you pitched talking about this to me is like the difference between this and like Terrace House or like Queer Eye or like Bake Off.
I still have not seen the new season of Queer Eye because
you've been watching fucking Hype House.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been watching Queer Eye like as like a background show just because I feel like it makes a good background show. Absolutely no hate. It's like I love it, but also, and I think what's interesting about that is like all of this is about just like random people who are good at a skill or have been chosen to be on the show because there's something about them that is interesting, but like they usually don't go viral afterwards. Most of like the Bake Off people just end up back in their normal lives because I think that's what they want, or like they didn't want to leverage a brand or they couldn't find a way to do it.
Counterpoint.
Yeah.
One of my best friends, Zoe Stoller, is a queer influencer in Philadelphia, and because she is a queer influencer in Philadelphia, Zoe just knows all of the queer influencers in Philadelphia, and as you probably know, Queer Eye did a Philadelphia season, and one of the people they featured on the show was this girl, Jess, and she was like a fan favorite. People just love Jess. She's very cool, and Zoe has become friends with Jess. And she kept just mentioning like, oh yeah, I'm going to hang out with my friend Jess. And I was just like, all right, you have a friend Jess. And then one time we all hung out together and I was like, oh, it's that Jess. And it's super weird because I think Jess is a case where she actually did turn being on Queer Eye into like, she's become kind of like an activist, public speaker kind of person. But it is super funny where it was so perfect because obviously like we do this podcast and then you're faced with the situation of when you meet somebody in real life and then you're like, oh yeah, I watched your episode of Queer Eye where you talk about really intimate issues in your personal life that you would not tell me because we literally just met and we are just at a coffee shop together. And also, because we love recursiveness, especially in this episode, I was working on the script for our episode about corporate cringe when we were hanging out with Jess at the coffee shop.
Incredible.
But she's just a normal person, and I feel bad even talking about her because I'm like, she's just normal.
So you're not going to ask her to be on a podcast, is what I'm hearing.
I mean, I don't know her that well because we hung out one time, and she was nice, and it was fine, and it was just a normal situation. I don't know.
Normal and regular. You know, okay, actually, like, I felt that way when I met Emily Templewood for the first time digitally.
She was on our podcast.
She was on our podcast, but, like, that was after, like, 2 years of being friends with her. I met her through a fandom Discord server, and, like, so I didn't know who the fuck she was. And then I looked her up, and then she had, like, a full Wikipedia page. And then I was like, I know too much information about you now. And I didn't mention it because I didn't want to be weird about it.
Well, throwback to, like, Wow If True episode 3.
What I'm saying is that the difference between this is that, like, Cheer season 2 and Hype House is, like, showing the aftermath of when somebody gets famous. Do you know what I mean? Where, like, after someone's gone viral, like, what are they worried about there? Whereas this, like, Terrace House or Queer Eye or Bake Off or stuff like that is, like, you truly are just getting some guy. And I guess even Cheer season 1, it's just some guy who's in a situation that's kind of interesting. And then they have to leverage that into whatever else that they're going to do with it.
Speaking of shows, the time has come where you're going to tell me what Blorbo from my shows means.
Wrong. I am not going to tell you what it is. First, we're going to have a little quiz.
Oh, God.
Who do you think Blorbo from my shows is? What do you think this means?
For some reason, I picture it as the guy from BoJack Horseman.
Wait, which one?
The horse guy.
BoJack, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I feel like maybe when you mentioned this to me, you also mentioned some kind of thing about a horse.
Great, okay. What do you think horse plinko means?
I don't know. Is it kind of like the eagle has landed, sort of? Just like a... I don't know.
Okay, I'm gonna do two more. EBDB. What do you think going to EBDB means?
Oh no, I was gonna say that EBDB is what Horse Blinko says.
Okay.
But if you go to EBDB...
Yeah, you're going to EBDB.
I think it's Tartarus.
Okay, honestly, that's not a bad guess. That's adjacent. Last one. What do you think Glupshido is?
I think it's a greeting, like you say. Glupshido.
Shit, that's good. I really enjoyed that.
So, do I get to learn now? As the audience stand-in, do I get to learn?
I almost don't want to tell you, but okay. So let's break this down. All right, Blorbo from shows is, he's Blorbo from your shows, and Blorbo from your shows basically represents any character somebody is posting a lot about. Does that make sense? Wait, why is that so funny? Oh shit, did I break you?
Because that's just so Tumblr, where it's like you just follow someone and they're really into like Torchwood, the Doctor Who spinoff.
Yes, exactly. Jack from Torchwood is Blorbo from shows. Exactly. The Doctor is Blorbo from shows.
Like, I don't care about David Tennant, but I know that he's like in love with some redhead or something, and they go back in time, and then like they have to find each other. I think her name's Amy. I don't know shit about Doctor Who, but I know about Doctor Who because I was on Tumblr in 2011.
The Doctor is Blorbo from shows. And basically this spawned from, this does go back to Supernatural.
I don't know what's wrong with me. I just think that's just an encapsulation of Tumblr in one phrase.
No, it's perfect. Honestly, there's a reason this has gone viral on Tumblr and has actually been mentioned outside. This is the post that really encapsulates. Bitches will be previous tags OMG on my post, and I'll check the previous tags, and it's Blorbo from my shows. I wish everybody at home could see the face that Amanda is making right now, because she is actively dying on camera.
You should screenshot for Patreon, but now it's not organic.
I took a screenshot now, and you are truly dying here. It's extremely fucking funny. Shall I go on?
Yes.
Horse plinko. The horse is in the plinko. A plinko machine is basically, I will send you the gif later, but a plinko machine is basically a bunch of pegs that are on a board that you send a ball down, and then a gif of basically a rubbery horse falling through the plinko has gone viral, and horse in the plinko is going to super hell, aka the flames at the bottom of the plinko.
I thought super hell is supernatural.
This is supernatural, but people are just sending the horse there. See, I'm starting with something easy one now, just to not break you further. EBDB is a meme where basically the original image was of a elevator where all the letters at the top, the digital letters, had been replaced with EBDB. And then, so everyone's the elevator's going to EBDB. So, sent his ass to EBDB.
It's Tartarus.
Yeah, exactly. So you were right about that. And then, Glupshido. Sorry. It's a similar concept to Blorbo from my shows. But it's specifically for Star Wars, where if you hear someone talk about Star Wars without the context of what Star Wars and the characters is, it sounds like that they're saying oh my god, they brought back Glupshido.
Yeah, I know nothing about Star Wars, so that is kind of what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, does that answer any of your questions?
That was better than I expected. I don't know why Blorbo from my show.
Okay, but so here's why we're talking about all of this. First of all, these memes have kind of condensed into a super meme, where all of these were individual memes that have gone viral either in the last week or the last year, 6 months-ish. But Tumblr broke their search engine, which Amanda knows more about. It's been a whole journey of that, which my theory is that this is kind of spawned the Tower of Babel of memes. Because they were trying to make fun of the fact that search is broken by tagging with nonsense shit, and because Blorbo got popular. I think this is also Blorbo's fault. It's all about Blorbo from my shows.
Okay, I'm gonna try to calm down so I can step into the tech journalist role here. But basically, what happened with Tumblr is they're constantly at odds with the Apple App Store. That's why the whole Tumblr ban porn thing happened in 2018, because the App Store was hey, there's child porn on your app, and then Tumblr was we're gonna die if we're not allowed to be on the App Store, so because we can all agree that child porn is extremely bad, we're going to remove all porn, period, which that was just a content moderation decision that they've made, which has contributed to what people refer to as the downfall of Tumblr, though Tumblr still is alive and well and Blorbo from Showsing. Tumblr encountered an issue in mid-December where I guess the app reviewers were finding sensitive content on the app, and they, I guess because it was like the holidays, and this is just speculation, but maybe they were like, fuck, we're all about to like be off, let's just make a band-aid fix. They decided to ban any tag where they thought that sensitive content might appear, and for some reason some of these were stuff that made sense, like the tag for eating disorders, but then some of them were Tony the Tiger and Eugene Levy, and Tumblr users crowdsourced a list of like 400 tags that were just inexplicably not searchable on the iOS app. And since then, Tumblr has at last introduced a sensitive content toggle, which is a better way of complying with App Store guidelines than simply just banning Tony the Tiger.
I feel like Tumblr always makes like the worst decision first off. I feel like on a 6-monthly basis, like will break some essential feature of their website. All the users will lose their minds about it for a day and then immediately go back to posting like normal or like a meme on it, which is why Blorbo from Shows I think got popular. Because my theory is that like a bunch of like nonsense words have been getting popular because of the combination of Blorbo from Shows and the fact that search is broken, so people are like, haha, let's just come up with some dumb fucking tags. I have this in my notes that I thought this was more of a human interest story, perhaps an online internet Tumblr gremlin interest story than anything else. I didn't think this would break containment at all, and that I thought it was indicative of a closed meme ecosystem, and it says something about how absurd memes are outside of context. But I'm wrong about that because there have been multiple articles about the Blorbo from Shows and about Tumblr's like renaissance. Like maybe not renaissance, but the fact that people are still on Tumblr recently. There was like an article on the Daily Dot about Blorbo from Shows, which is just something I was not expecting anyone to talk about ever because it's nothing. This is nothing.
Kyle Chakia from The New Yorker wrote an article called How Tumblr Became Popular for Being Obsolete.
Yes, and I have a quote here that I want to say from that. Sorry, I'm cutting you off. I'm rude as hell.
I also just resent Kyle for writing this because I wanted to write this, but that's okay.
Is Kyle also your nemesis?
I follow him on Twitter and he doesn't follow me back, so like probably.
So he is, okay. But yeah, like unfortunately I think he said something like relatively accurate, which is that Tumblr is something like an Atlantis of social networks. Once prominent, innovative, and shining on equal footing with any other social media company, it sank under the waves, but it might be rising once more. Tumblr's very status as a relic of the internet, easily forgotten, unobtrusively designed, more or less unchanged from a decade ago, is making it appealing to prodigal users as well as new ones, which I think is actually completely accurate because there's a post that's been going around Tumblr right now, which is like, why are people still on Tumblr? And basically it's because Tumblr has a bunch of features that no other social media is willing to implement in the year of our Lord, internet capitalism.
These features are just like a chronological feed that does not have an algorithm deciding to rank certain content above others because it is more likely to outrage you, like Facebook.com does.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just the fact that it's kind of like a less advanced site and a site that's not trying to sell you anything. And when it does try to sell you something, it's done in such an absurd way that it makes no sense. Like I showed you Make Him a Lord, right? Like that was a real ad.
Yes.
Yeah, the fact that it's like so unusable is I think what's part of Tumblr's appeal. And then it also is what spawns memes like Blorbo from Shows.
But I think also things can be unusable in a way that makes you resent it, in a way that I think people like Tumblr because it's so bad. But I recently started playing Words with Friends again, and I gotta say, Words with Friends is unplayable because there are so many terrible ads and so many useless features that I feel like Words with Friends is a game that people play because they think it's like a brain exercise. But if anything, I have lost brain cells from the Words with Friends 2 app.
I have never played Words with Friends in like the last 2 years, so I will simply have to take your word on this. But yeah, like I think that's true of like a lot of mobile gaming. I play a lot of like horrible mobile games, and they all have almost enough ads to make them unusable. Speaking of unusable apps, actually, this has nothing to do with anything that we've talked about today, but I did want to share it with you, and I did want to share it with our listeners. Talking about unusable, so I'm on Hinge, theoretically, in that I have a Hinge, and I don't really use it, and I logged into it, not logged in, I opened it for the first time like 2 days ago. And someone left this comment on one of my photos. You've definitely got that I'll beat you up and eat you alive face. And please don't eat me for saying this. I'll do anything, please. Why would you say that to someone?
I agree. Why would you say that to somebody? But I think they're correct.
Oh my god!
I think your vibe is very much like, I'm silly, but I will also beat you up.
But like he wants me to step on him. It's not a funny thing. It's like he's being horny at me on Maine, and I'm like, damn, this is a selfie.
Oh no, I didn't even realize that. I was just like, yeah, you do kind of want to beat people up.
I do. My vibe is that, but like he saw like one selfie of me and was like, you know what that girl wants to do? That girl wants to step on me, and I don't want to step on him. I just feel like internet interactions have really encouraged too much weird behavior from men. That's all I've got to say.
I agree with that, and I think that men need to stop being horny on Maine. Speaking of Maine, one more fun fact. The public domain...
That sucked. That's good.
Just want to stop in real quick and say that last year, because we can say that now, last year on our podcast, we talked about the internet's reaction to The Great Gatsby entering the public domain. This year, the great nerdy holiday of Public Domain Day, January 1st, has come and gone. And the two potentially most exciting things entering the public domain this year are Winnie the Pooh and The Sun Also Rises. So, listener challenge. Write Winnie the Pooh, The Sun Also Rises fanfic and publish it.
Or send us your pitch for the Winnie the Pooh Sun Also Rises crossover event. Tweet it on Twitter, and then we will retweet it. I think there's a lot of interesting ways you can make this happen, and I think none of them are really good, but they're interesting.
Speaking of like vintage internet, how remember there was that thing where John and Hank Green thought it was really funny to take book titles and say in your pants?
Yes, unfortunately.
One of the big ones was The Sun Also Rises in your pants. But apparently The Sun Also Rises actually is about like erectile dysfunction.
I mean, that's maybe why they were like saying it.
But like, I didn't realize that until I Googled the plot of The Sun Also Rises because I wanted to think about a funny crossover with Winnie the Pooh.
I think there's a lot of stuff you could do with the fact that Winnie the Pooh is wearing a shirt, but only a shirt in this context. And that's all I have to say about that. That's all I have to say about that. All right. Anyway, this is our anniversary episode. Happy anniversary, us.
Speaking of how we talked about 2 different public domain days because we have done a podcast for over a year now.
It's our anniversary episode, so good job us. We've been doing this for a year. It's been kind of a fucking insane year to be doing this, actually. Like, I think I'm really proud of us for actually, like, getting this far.
I feel like when we started this podcast, I was flailing freelance writer and you were law student. Mm-hmm. But now we are cool, powerful tech journalist who knows stuff and person who passed the bar and works at a law firm but still needs to submit the paperwork so that we can legally say on our podcast that you're a lawyer, because right now we can't legally say that. New York bar, please don't add us.
It's not even that I need to send the paperwork at this point. It's that there is a piece of paperwork that someone else needs to get to me.
I think what we've realized in the year of doing this podcast is that we're not just 2 dudes talking about the internet culture. We are experts talking about internet culture.
Truly. Wow, you said experts with so much intensity.
Honestly, like, my voice is still a little bubbly because I literally cried when you explained Blorbo from shows to me.
This is all to say that we're doing a big rebrand because 1-year anniversary, it seemed like a good time. So for us, that kind of means we're doing a lot of back-end restructuring, which is not fun to talk about. For you, that means some of our flavor text has changed. So go check that out if you like to see all the changes that we've made. And we have pretty new podcast art designed by the best dungeon master in podcasting, Eric Silver, who is now our graphic designer.
Eric just loves Canva and just was like, I'm gonna make you art. And we were like, please, Eric, help. Even though me and Isabel have 1.5 fine arts degrees combined. The 0.5 is because I minored, and I just like the idea that a minor is 0.5 degree.
I feel like that's about right. Also, from a content perspective, you've kind of seen this change over the last, like, I think maybe 3 or 4 months as we kind of figured out what we wanted to do for real with this show. And we're focusing our show less on, like, what it's like to quote unquote go viral, and more so on deep dives into what's kind of going on in internet culture, like what is happening and why it matters through our expert perspectives.
Like the link between Blorbo from shows and Hype House on Netflix.
Yes, like where else are you gonna get that? You're only gonna get that here.
We are simply putting our proverbial stick in the ground and saying, it's WoW of True 2.0, baby! And WoW of True 3.0 will be when we delve into crypto. Just kidding. We're not doing that.
That's when we come out with our NFTs, right? Like we start like an NFT collection. I think what we should do if we ever made an NFT collection is I think we should take a lot of Richard Prince artwork.
Oh, Emily Ratajkowski already did that. So Richard Prince is an appropriation artist where his whole thing is that he just takes other people's art and then is like, I took a picture of it and now it's me, Richard Prince. And then he did the same thing where he screenshotted celebrities' Instagrams and blew them up and put them in a gallery. And one of them was of the model, Emily Ratajkowski.
You got it in the end.
And then she did an NFT of his appropriation of her Instagram, and it was super meta.
Anyway, so we can't do that, so we're not making any NFTs.
Also, because we care about the environment.
Sometimes I throw away a plastic cup and then I feel bad. But like, yeah, so it's kind of interesting because we've been like soft rebranding for almost like 3 or 4 months, but this is the first time that we're saying, actually, we're rebranding.jpg. I may be lying about that. We may have mentioned it in a podcast before. We probably have. But like, I think that's a kind of interesting to do in a sense that like a rebrand feels like a thing because it's not like we haven't been shifting the focus, but it feels like it's a hard reset. And I did want to talk about like the BDG video with Hugh Brandity and his brand cocoon.
Which we talk about often because I think it's very on brand for us to talk about the fact that we're rebranding because part of this podcast is about the internet culture of it all in terms of how we have to figure out how to brand ourselves on the internet and like, what do you do if you're the person from Netflix Cheer, but then you're Lexi Brumback and you're actually like a raver girl, and then you have this athlete brand, but then you're a raver girl brand, and like, how do you manage that?
Not to say that BTG was right about anything, but sometimes he is right, where I think like the Hugh Brandity video, like other than being extremely fucking funny, like I think it was right about the fact that like you do need to turn yourself into like a soundbite. And part of what we were doing is trying to figure out like what's the image we want to project and what are we outside of that soundbite. And also what happens when like our original pitch, which is we're trying to go viral on the internet and we're just some guys, turns into actually we don't want to really be viral on the internet, but we have a lot of opinions and a lot of really specific insight into other people going viral on the internet.
We want to be viral on the internet and that we want you to listen to our podcast and tell other people about our podcast so that we become podcast famous. But that's different from being viral on the internet. That's being viral in podcast.
We want listeners who like actually listen to our show as opposed to we want to be in a meme. Anyway, you should go tell your friends about this podcast. This is just me pitching the podcast. And like speaking of like being aggressively transparent about what we're doing, because we've been pretty transparent so far, is that we're also pretty transparent about the money stuff because honestly, lack of transparency only helps the ruling class. Like talk with your coworkers about your salaries. So this is a portion of the podcast where we talk about the money stuff.
So there are 3 things we're rolling out as part of the rebrand. One is we are trying to make money, but also we want to partner with brands that we think are good. And 2 of brands that we think are good are Libro FM and bookshop.org, both of which are ways that you can read and or listen to books, but not put money into Jeff Bezos's pocket. That is both of these companies' pitches. They're both just like, what if instead of Jeff Bezos, you paid local bookstore?
So help us to help you to help everyone who isn't Jeff.
The long and short of it all is if you go to Libro FM and enter WOW at checkout, that's our code, WOW, you can get 2 books for the price of 1, and we get a little bit of money from it.
I can't believe we got wow. And the other thing that we're doing is that you might start hearing ads for other cool podcasts on here, and which like honestly, like I felt a little weird about it first, but like ads on podcasts are a good way to learn about podcasts in the sense that if you're listening to a podcast, you probably want to listen to more podcasts, so stay tuned for that. The last thing is our Patreon. So we're shifting around our Patreon tiers. Check out patreon.com/wowiftrue because you should really support us on Patreon. I want you to say the rest of this because of this part that I've highlighted, that you changed. Anyway, you say it.
We do this as a side gig already, and so far with the support of our patrons, we've been able to make this show better by bringing in Allison Mills, who you might remember from our Race and Fandom episode and or / the internet, she's on Tumblr, who is now helping us with some of our audio editing, which is great because audio editing is the most time-intensive and demanding part of having a podcast, and having somebody to help us who we are paying to help us is a life changer and incredible and will only give us more time to focus on the content of the show, like thinking about Blorbo from shows.
Oh, I would be thinking about Blorbo from my shows regardless, Amanda. Like, that's all I do is I think about Blorbo from shows.
And another thing that we did is we worked with Multitude Productions on our rebrand.
You fucking coward, you didn't say it!
I referred to Amanda and Eric, who helped us from Multitude Productions with our rebrand, as our podcast...
Say it!
Our podcast mommy and daddy. Because I was gonna say our, like, podcast big siblings, because they, like, help us with stuff, and they're slightly older than us. But it would be weird if they were siblings because they're getting married, which means that they kiss.
But why did you write mommy and daddy?
I don't know. Because it's funny, because I'm making content. And now it's content because you're making fun of me, and people like that.
Oh my god.
But yeah, so long story short, your money helps us put money into making the podcast better. And like, presumably if you're giving us money, that means that you like our podcast and the show getting better benefits you. So thanks, patrons. Besides making the show better, what do you get from supporting us on Patreon?
Okay, so basically you get more content. At the $5 tier, you now get access to our Discord, where we talk about memes and books and also life, and sometimes other people talk about memes and books and also life. Also other things than that, but like I feel like also life covers that. You also get access to a bunch of Patreon bonus content. The latest one that we've uploaded is a video where we talk about crypto islands. Do not ask what those are. It's deranged. And the results of the Elizabeth Holmes trial, because Amanda's still obsessed with that. And of course, you also get to submit questions when we have guests. That's all at the $5 tier. At the $10 tier, you get all of the above, but we will also add your preferred name or username to our Twitter header. You could really abuse this one.
Oh yeah, I mean, people are already abusing this, like how on the higher tier, one of our perks is that your name gets said in the credits, and one of our patrons has already made us refer to them as Ultralord from Jimmy Neutron, as well as Algae Rhythm from Space Jam 2, so go wild. I love it. Isabel doesn't. I love it.
See, the problem is that I have to say it. You know, I do deserve this. So that's what you get at $10. You get your preferred name, username in our Twitter header, so for everybody to see. And you get access to our show notes and research, which, just to clarify, is different than transcripts.
We're still working on that.
Yes, that will be for free, because accessibility, but basically our show notes are just kind of like the notes that we have before the show. They're usually like 3 or 4 pages long. They have all of our research and all of the links. And if you're a certain sort of like voyeur, that would probably be very interesting to you. And also, Amanda will literally mail you a friendship bracelet, like a physical one.
I make friendship bracelets and they have little letter beads on them, so some of them say things like Destiel or Chugi.
Is this a sell?
There's 3 that I made recently that I haven't sent out yet, but one says Gaslight, one says Gatekeep, and one says Girlboss.
You know, I can't tell if this is selling or not selling it, but anyway, that's the $10 tier. And at the $15 tier, you get all of the above, and I will DM you my AO3 username. No. Oh my.
I'm gonna beep that out.
So that's kind of like what we're doing now, and we're really excited about it. And existing patrons, stay tuned for a post on Patreon with super secret cool info about how this affects you. Spoilers, it really only affects you if you want it to. And we did it. That was all the advertisement and information about what we're doing going forwards, and we're really excited about it.
Yay, we did it. And now for everyone's favorite part of the podcast, the credits.
If you like this episode, tell a friend. Word of mouth is how we grow. Thank you to all of our Patreon patrons. Shout out to Zoe, Bray, Andre Grant, Thea, Squidward Tennis Balls, and Gabriel. Why is Gabriel after Squidward Tennis Balls? It's just the kind of, okay, whatever. If you want your name in the above, slide right into patreon.com/wowoftrue. Shout outs to Allison Mills, audio editor extraordinaire, graphic designer Eric Silver, who made our new logo, and Sam Rizer, who made our podcast music. This has tripled in size. You can find us on Twitter as wowofTruePod. You can find us generically online as wowoftrue.com, and Instagram and Facebook as @wowoftrue. If you've had your 15 seconds of internet fame, if you have something you want to tell us, if you want to show us a cool meme, slide right into our Twitter DMs and tell us about it. And until next time, let's get weird on the internet.